Awesome. We are live. Hey, hello again, Natalie.
Hey, Sean, good to see you again.
Yeah, so I have known you for a while, and only recently did I get to know you're the only marketer at Navattic. I did not know that at all. Not. I thought there was a large team behind you because you've always been, hey, let's do this in partnerships. Never said no to anything. We're on live right now. You're still doing it. It's yeah. Like, I was blown by that personally.
I I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad I'm giving off the deception of a larger team, but always kind of been at startups and small teams, so kind of figured out ways to make it work and just try my best to still say yes to what I can do.
Awesome. So, yeah, still hard to believe. So, I think a couple of things. We've had a similar discussion earlier, but a lot has changed since then, right? So, the economy has changed. You have a great report out. I think we've also, uh, or at least I have personally learned or have seen a few places where, uh, you know, we've seen drop offs more often nowadays because of uh, bad bias experiences. So, given all of that, right, I think we can just start at like what's the typical bias experience that you're seeing nowadays, is because you've done this huge report with Chili Pepper on that.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we just launched a big report with Chili Piper, and essentially what we did is we booked demos with the top 100 SaaS companies, and this was by
Mhm.
employee size. So these are big companies. I won't name any names, but should have the staffing and resources and budgeting available to set up all the automation. And out of those 100 SaaS companies, only 65% responded to us, and it took an average of 2 days response time. Of that, also only 11% had like direct calendar schedulers to let us directly schedule. Only 17% had interactive demos. So overall, it was, for 35% of those companies, if we weren't seeing an interactive demo or being able to schedule time, we basically just didn't get to see the product. So that was definitely a little shocking. Like we went into this report knowing
Yeah.
that, being buyers, I bought a lot of software. I've had that happen to me,
Mhm.
but still was shocked at the scale of it, especially for those large SaaS
Yeah.
companies.
So this is me as a, I think back when I was working in a different company, right? I always thought we don't show it because our software honestly does not look good, right? Like the UI of the software is bad, so we don't want to show folks. And I think this is typical in larger companies that the UI is not as good. So do you think it could, like, these stats could have been better if we just went and looked at maybe mid-market companies or SMBs, or is that not really an excuse?
Honestly, the interactive demo rate, I thought that could have been worse because we've done a report before looking at like 5,000 SaaS
Mhm.
companies. That was about a year ago, but we saw like a 5% adoption rate then. So 17% for these enterprise companies was larger than I was expecting going into the report.
Yes.
So I actually think for a lot of these enterprise companies, maybe they don't have, like you said, the cleanest UI, but they often have a lot of different product lines and some product lines that are more SMB or more self-service. So we did notice where they did put the interactive demos, it tended to be on specific product line pages. And of maybe some of those products that did have a little bit cleaner of the UIs, they're not showing off the really complex enterprise product always.
Awesome. And so, but yeah, like, I think the, again, the excuse that, hey, we cannot have a scheduler in place, and because we've had this, when we run ads for our clients, we often get into this thing that, hey, can we please have a scheduler in place, because we are not just on leads, we're just on SQLs, and then if you're just dropping off or like letting people drop off, that also impacts our KPIs. And the most common objection I've heard is that, but our qualification process is so complex that how can I let people just schedule a call with anyone? Given the technology that we have today, do you think that would again be like a justified argument for some companies or any companies?
So I do think there are probably some companies that have a large level of like manual qualification. I will say, I think probably 80% fit into a bucket where you could use something like Clearbit to enrich it on the back
Yeah.
end. And that's actually what we do internally is because we qualify based off of if they're a SaaS company or not, and then their employee size. So we have it
Yeah.
routed to different reps based off employee size. And you could easily, instead of for us, like we do take most inbound calls, but if you,
Yeah.
had really strict qualifications, you could say, okay, if they're this size, just send them an automated email cadence, right?
Yeah.
Like it's fine to disqualify. I was just shocked from this report how many companies didn't even tell us, like, hey, you're
Oh,
not a good fit for our software, you know, here are some resources to maybe help you out. Like that was more shocking to me, just the no response at all.
oh, so you didn't even get an automated confirmation email.
Yeah, those 35% we just never heard from.
Oh, not even an. I thought like you got an. I don't know. I assumed 100% of the times you got an at least an automated confirmation that hey, we've received your response. We'll get back to you in 48 to 72 years or or however long. But but okay, you never even heard back. Like it wasn't even an automated sequence. Understood.
No, and what I will say is we didn't count calls. And I know that people were calling us because we use an alias, but we used Arthur's real phone number. And so he was like, oh my God, BDRs keep calling me. But I don't think most people, I don't know about anyone else. I never accept random BDR calls anymore. So it is possible some of these were all. But what shocked me is like even if it was, why not just end with an automated email saying like, "Hey, sorry we didn't get in touch,"
Yeah.
or "Hey, sorry you're not a good fit at this time." Like that really surprised me that there wasn't just some automation in place. So even if you do manual routing, just
Mhm.
having a backup to still tell people like, "Hey, at this time you might not be a good fit," because they might change companies and they might be a good fit one day. You don't want to burn that relation.
100%. And just before this call, I was on another call with someone, and I think the and one of the primary reasons they were considering us as an agency is because our scheduling link was very easily accessible. Um, and that's it. Like that was like, hey, I was in the market. You do what we do. I found your link, so I'm just going to schedule the call and speak with you tomorrow, right? Versus everyone, a lot of other agencies, you have to just ask and then wait, and then someone qualifies, and then there's an again a qualification call and all of that. Great. So yeah, like it does matter quite a bit. Like a lot of agencies did not get that call just because they didn't have that link up in front of everyone. Yeah.
I think it's hard because you're never told if you don't have the link. I didn't book a meeting with you because you don't have a calendar scheduler. So I think a lot of companies don't realize what they're missing out on, but because we've had the same thing, we've had companies say, "Oh, you guys are easy to get started," or "I could book a same day demo," and it was an actual demo, not a qualification call. And so you don't really hear the positive feedback till you do it. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of companies just don't think like they're not hearing that feedback of, "Oh, we didn't book time with you because you didn't have a calendar scheduler."
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, 100%. Have you ever done a research, or do you have any case studies on where you've seen an uplift when you've integrated maybe the automated demos, or any numbers, like what can companies expect essentially?
Yeah, I think a big thing that the automated or interactive demos can do is basically you're kind of eliminating one that like maybe first call where it's like, hey, do you have any idea what our software does? Let me give you a super high presentation.
Yeah.
Because if you've gone to the interactive demo, you clearly showed I understand what your product does. I've seen the aha and value moments. And at this point, I'm saying, like, yes, I am interested in this product.
Yeah.
So we have one customer who actually said their solution consultants are spending 30% less time on the early stage demo when they have seen those interactive demos and then can drive just fully into those more like later stage demos.
Awesome. So you can either, instead of selling to marketing, you can sell it to sales and say that, hey, marketing can do it, but they're not. You know, just tug them a bit. But yeah, like definitely. And so what do you think an ideal process should look again? Like feel free to take this conversation anywhere you'd like to, but especially given the scenario right now, right? So I've been hearing different stats. There was this one stat that people are making, companies in general are making 17% lower SaaS buying, like net new SaaS buying
Mm-hmm.
decisions, versus most of it is just renewing subscription. So this was a payment platform that said this. There was another company that said that the um, that is running SaaS business is 30% harder. Forgot the rest of the stats that's around those, but that was another. So we're now seeing actual data to show that it has gotten much more difficult. So with that context, like what can companies like change very quickly? What can we see being done differently?
Yeah, I think I'll start with ideal state, and then I'm going to go into what are some quick wins that you can do. I think the ideal state, this is what we were looking at the report, is easy scheduling. So if that's a calendar scheduler, just, even if you are doing a human, just having a quick response time. Giving some more product information up front so people can do their own research before having to dive into that call. I think what we're going to see right now is a lot of people might be researching and learning, but not buying. But you don't want to have someone, if they want to learn more about your product, but they can't right now commit to a demo because maybe they don't have budget, you still want them to learn about your product. So then when they do have budget, they're excited and ready. And then third is transparent pricing, especially right now. Like if you seem really expensive, if you seem out of range, I think companies aren't going to consider as much. We have to all be really tight with our budgets. So not, but there's nothing more frustrating than going on a sales call and then hearing after the third call that it's way outside your price range. And I know that not everyone's comfortable with maybe putting those three things right on their website to start. So some quick wins you can do. I'd start incorporating some of this into the sales cycle. So maybe you don't show transparent pricing, but when you get a lead, and especially if you see they're probably unqualified or might not be within your budget range, just email them, let them know your pricing, and then say, hey, does this work for you? So then you don't have to waste time on the sales or prospects end if it doesn't. Another thing, you could also do that with interactive demos. So you could send one before call or after just to give them, again, a little taste so they know what they're signing up for in advance. Um, so really just ways that you don't, if you're not ready or fully comfortable to put it all on your website yet, I would say that's the ideal state, but I understand why some companies with competitors and maybe their leadership team's not ready for that. Start just making it easier in the sales cycle. And then the nice part is you'll get some data and you'll get some buy-in from the sales team if it's working. And then people might feel more comfortable with eventually putting it on the website.
Understood. So I've always thought this, right? That so for example, in our sales calls, I remember we did this analysis where we just like messaged someone that, hey, this was a deal we really want to close, and we messaged them and we lost that deal, right? Someone, they went to a different agency, and then we basically asked them that, hey, like what happened, right? Like, is there something, like why did you not select us versus someone else? And the reasons they told us, a lot of the reasons were just like, I didn't communicate it well enough on a sales call. I didn't, or didn't ask those questions. I assumed those are obvious things. I didn't talk about those features. Um, so taking that to an interactive demo, um, so you cannot show everything in a demo. It's not guided, it's not all of that. So do you think it can ever cause a situation where people think, oh, this can only do X things and it cannot potentially do Y? Like, have you ever heard, or like, or maybe it's a functionality that, yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that as a fear before. Like, oh, if I am only showing this much on my website, like, but what about all the other things my demo can do? And the way I always say to position or think about interactive demos is similar to how you think about like a product video. It should really only be about, 30 seconds to a minute. It should be short and really highlighting those main aha moments. And so, ask your sales team, look at your product data, figure out what are those features that are really going to hook people in. But the goal is to hook them in. It's not to show the entire product. It's not to replace a sales call. It really is to get them excited and some level of product education so that they know what they're signing up for. But at the end of it, they shouldn't think like, oh, that's all they do. You should make it clear throughout, like, no, oh, if you want to learn more, jump on a live call and just get them kind of excited.
Nice. Understood. Is there, so okay, so for example, to get started, just to summarize what you said earlier, we can get, maybe just start with screenshots, start with some maybe designed images, show more of that. If you can at least help understand, like in the pricings, in maybe a real or a fake pricing page, try and help people understand what, how it's priced, who is it for, So basically make the buying process more transparent. And I think the one, and then maybe you can graduate to videos or demo schedulers, or uh, even something like a Navattic, right? So now what's really interesting is you mentioned that a lot of people aren't buying now, and they may end up taking those decisions later. So you might see a spike later. And all the data I've ever read on the recession says that there is a downturn today. Companies are not spending today. It does not, like, one interpretation of that I hadn't thought of earlier could be that, hey, maybe they're just like not making they're just delaying the decision. So which means that you can still be running your, like, it could be that all the marketing that you're doing, all the visibility that you're getting today may result in a lot more purchases very soon if you stay top of mind and you've showcased what you can do. And one interesting way to sort of stay top of mind and showcase it is determine the level of engagement. And what better way to engage with the product than use it? So yeah, like that's just like a train of thought that was going on in my mind. But yeah.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's what we're hearing a lot of companies talk about right now is almost how can I use my demo as another form of like intent data? Because again,
Yeah.
right now people might not be buying, but you still want to capture the fact that they interacted with your demo or that, how much they interacted, what features were they most interested in. So one thing we're hearing a lot is wanting to pipe the data into a CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot, and we enable them to essentially see on those records like, oh, hey, this person went through this part of my interactive demo and they were interested in these features. Internally, so our demo is ungated, but we use Clearbit and Google Analytics to create a report that says, hey, here are the top companies that went through my
Yeah.
interactive demo this week. I can see how many users or how far they made it into the demo. And then for outbound, we can say, and we know there's going to be longer cycles, right? Like we know for outbound, it's going to take them a little
Mhm.
while to get adjusted, but we now have some focus to say these companies have showed some intent. Let's go after it and let's create a long cadence. So when they do have buying power, when they are ready, they've already been warmed up. They know about Navattic. We know they've seen the product and have expressed some interest.
Wow. Yeah, because I think recently we've changed our demand gen flows. We keep testing out different flows. We primarily test with Spear Growth and roll out to our clients. But one of the flows that is working really well for us is we get people to engage on our ads and maybe on our website. And then based on the level of engagement, based on, hey, maybe we have a customer who has a common investor, maybe, some customers in a similar industry, or maybe based on some activity they've taken, we try and reach out to them. And it's worked really well. We don't even try and sell it at that point, because the problem with this is they've seen our ad, but our ads are primarily more of a demand gen style. Hey, we're talking the problem, this is how you can solve it. So there's no purchase intent. So we don't reach out and say that, hey, let me sell to you. We have to reach out and say that, um, hey, here's another resource that you can maybe consume, which is from Spearcross. That works really well, and we start seeing a lot of conversion from there. With something like this, and with for intent data, we have to rely on maybe first or third party or second, where it's, um, oh, they've seen this page, but I think a lot of companies are not seeing a lot of positive response, even from that quote unquote intent data that, hey, they visited my landing page, I reached out and then I didn't get anything. That's happening pretty often, but with a demo that cannot, like, that should not happen as nearly as often.
Yeah, we hear a lot from clients like, oh, yeah, they visited my website, but you don't know, maybe they were looking for a job. Maybe it was a writer from their company who just was looking to pull from your blog post. What's nice about the interactive demo is you're pretty sure they're at least interested in the product. And especially if they made it all the way through the end, you can guarantee, okay, they've at least seen my product. They should have a baseline understanding of what we do. It's not going to be someone who I remember one time speaking with like a HubSpot rep, for example. And
Mhm.
HubSpot is fantastic. They put out so much great blog content and they've gotten their name out there. But I remember him saying, like, oh, yeah, we get calls all the time with people who think we do X because we have a blog post on it and we don't do that. So you're just kind of limiting going after those people who have really no
Yeah.
idea what your product does, and you can guarantee, okay, they get my product and they've seen the value.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. A lot of things that we discussed today are more of, hey, sales marketing. A lot of the benefits of marketing using this, sales gets, right? Because sales, it's easier for you to, for sales to reach out. So you get the people. So the people who have got, anyone who's gone through a demo has better context. And another use case, interesting one could, and since these demos are short, maybe there could also be multiple cases where um, maybe the buying committee isn't aligned, and there are some folks you cannot get on a sales call. So maybe you're sending a specific demo to specific people in those companies who you could never get on a call. So I think a lot of the use cases that we're discussing, even for marketing, the benefits are showing up with sales, right? And obviously that then helps marketing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We hear a lot of times the marketing team say, oh, I'm worried, like our sales team might worry that this is going to replace live demos or, reduce our lead volume. Which again, which we always say, it should really be that something to get them excited. One thing we've heard customers say is almost a like snack, like a little bite-sized treat before you go in for the live demo. So it shouldn't replace it. But what we often see is once marketing makes these demos, then sales immediately starts adopting it. A big use case is what you mentioned for multi-threading. I think right
Mhm.
now everyone knows how important it is. Like I was talking to one customer, they're saying, right now we can't really focus on net new pipeline. We're not getting as much of that. So we really have to focus on our current pipeline, and a big priority for us right now is multi-threading with that current pipeline. And usually multi-threading involves, sending one pagers or sending the hour-long
Mhm.
demo video, which I don't know about you, I have never once watched an hour-long demo video recap. But instead here you could say, okay, I know their boss is really focused on analytics. They really want to see the reporting capabilities of this platform
Yeah.
because that's what they'll be using. I'll enable my champion with a demo specifically around analytics that would take their boss a minute to click through versus
Yeah.
having them watch a hour-long demo video to get to that one point they cared about.
Mhm. Nice. So yeah, like there's a ton of use cases. Just summarize all the use cases, right? And please correct me if I missed something. So one is the or maybe use cases with benefits are different. For example, the first one is just like showing it on your website to essentially increasing the level of engagement someone has so that you are more memorable, and it helps you increase the ROI of a demand gen in the longer term. Or let's say the second or third layer of demand gen is where you can use this. So that's one. The second piece could be to increase essentially your qualified call rates, because if people have seen it, they've experienced it, maybe now they can get on a call, and then these calls. So that's the second one. So if someone has seen it and then they schedule a call, it's very, I don't know, I have this feeling, I'm not sure if it's true, drop offs should be lower, essentially. I don't know if you have any data to back that up, but I just feel like, okay, maybe there will be a slight difference in drop offs. Fourth one could is the one that you shared, that hey, the demo calls or the first intro calls are going to be shorter, and if they're shorter, that means that they're more focused, which probably means people already knew what they wanted. So it was less of, hey, like, do you want this or this or this, where the prospect came and said, hey, this is exactly what I need, and I'm interested in these two, three things. So the calls are shorter, so the close rate should be longer, should be faster. Sorry, so the close rate should be higher, sales cycle should be lower, and then getting, and the final one that I remember us discussing is getting all the stakeholders aligned to specific benefits, and you can maybe even have like different demos per stakeholder. For example, if we're just discussing this one of our infosec customers, that hey, like for this stakeholder, this is more important, for this other stakeholder this is more important. So maybe you can have a demo with one, but send influencers different pieces of the software, that hey, this is what your life will look like for you, versus. So yeah, like that. So that's like my summary of benefits and use cases. Did I miss something?
That was pretty perfect. I was going to say, Sean, sounds like you should do my job for me. um, I think the only thing we didn't touch on is also the PLG side to it, because a lot of companies who are PLG they might hear about interactive demos and think like, okay, what would be the purpose of this? I already have my product
Yeah.
that people could sign up for. And what we've seen is actually PLG companies helping with activation rates, because similar to the like a more qualified sales call for PLG, right? When you get a free trialer, you still have people who just kind of jump in and might not really understand what your product does. I know I've been guilty of that, of like, I'm just mass Googling, trying to find a solution. I open up 5 different tabs, sign up for 5 different products, didn't do my homework as much as I should, jumped in the product. Maybe it was the UI was a little confusing or took too much setup and then bounced. Um,
Yeah.
so really the goal is just to educate them as far as what you're actually signing up for before jumping into a free trial. And we've actually seen a one customer, Trainual, they did an A/B test with a video versus interactive demo, showing it before free trial sign up. And they saw 100% lift in activation from the users who went through the interactive demo versus the video, which is one of those stats where I'm almost like, could it be 101? That almost doesn't sound real. But we were all, super excited when we heard that one.
Wow. This reminds me of this. I don't know if you've seen this video that went viral, where there's this person just trying to insert a round, like someone has built this pegs, and maybe I'll just post about it. I'll just post this funny video with this context that, hey, like PLG companies, we don't really need product demo, but I'll send you that video. It was one of the most hilarious videos I've seen on in the internet for in a while. But yeah, is there anything else? So maybe like, so after this, I think we're almost on time. So after this, the we'll share the report that you had created. I think that's going to be really, really useful. Are there any specific things in the report that people should maybe focus on that will be more useful than others?
We have specific takeaways for each of the sections. So if you're curious, why companies are using schedulers or what that means, or how companies are using interactive demos or how they're showing their pricing. One thing that I was really surprised about, companies that were showing pricing and were actually showing pricing on their pricing page, not just kind of, saying like,
Yeah,
here are our
yeah.
plans. A majority of them had it in the main nav bar. So that was actually a big positive takeaway from this report, is that a good amount of companies were being very transparent with their pricing. So I recommend looking at those takeaways.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Natalie. I know it's the second time we've spoken, or maybe once with you, so third or four, I don't know. I always enjoy speaking with you.
Same here, Ishan. It's always nice to catch up, whether it's through the video or just getting to chat about demand gen stuff.
Yeah, yeah. We should talk about that again. We built something interesting.
Oh, I'm excited
Awesome.
to hear. Cool. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, 100%.